So the froth white inside here is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now there's a little bit of particle in the water at the moment. That's because we've disturbed the sand a lot. We've also sucked all of the particles off the bottom. We've also given that pump a bit of a clean. So the polyfilter should really help absorb these particles, and it will just take a bit of time before that clears up and calms down. This rockscape in this tank is very, very impressive. I think it looks awesome. One thing I'm a big fan of is change though. So really enjoy this until you've sort of mastered it. But you'll find that you'll do a scape, you'll make it look unreal. One year you love it, one year you like it, and then you've seen it. So don't be afraid to be a bit brutal and change it around every now and then for your interest and the fish. Now, as far as the rock is concerned, this rock is artificially coloured at the moment. But the colour of your rock indicates what your water quality was like last month. Now, if you end up with too much phosphate in the tank, this rock over time is going to go green. If you've got too much silicate in the tank, over time your rock is going to go brown. And there's various things that the colour of the rock indicates. And obviously biological lag is a big factor. So as you start to fix something, it takes a month or months to start to see the actual impact of what you're changing. So in the long run, what we're actually wanting is coralline algae. Coralline algae is the colour of this rock, because this rock is painted like fake coralline algae. It's like a pinky purple colour. But once you start growing real coralline algae, then the real coralline algae competes with any other algae for space and for nutrients. So a lot of people will not clean their back wall. They'll let that coralline. But basically, when your water quality is right, then over time your coralline grows, and then your coralline is a sign of a good, healthy aquarium, and your coralline will reduce the other noxious algae by competition. Now, once your water quality is correct, I would recommend bringing us down a sample of water and a little video of your tank running. In the video, we also want to see any bits and pieces that you may or may not have for the tank. And then we'll determine whether your tank is ready to get new fish. But it's really important that you understand the 1 month rule. The 1 month rule basically means your tank runs really well for a month, then you can add some fish. What you don't want to do is have any problems or add any fish, then go and add new fish. Otherwise, you increase the chances of white spot. So tanks run well for a month, then you're allowed new fish. If something goes wrong, you start your month again. The next thing I want you to do is be aware of salinity, because the salinity of a fish is about half seawater. So the industry tends to run a lower salinity, and fish have no problem dropping salinity. Fish have a massive problem increasing salinity. So when they catch fish out of the wild, most of the salinity of the wild or specific gravity is 0.024, 0.025. Then they'll often catch the fish and throw them straight into 1.5 or 1.7. They'll throw them right into fresher water. And the reason why they do that is because the osmoregulation system within the fish gets a break, and that gives extra energy for the immune system. Also, various pathogens, bacteria, and various things hate the water being fresher. So if you suddenly make the water fresher, the fish is advantaged and any potential pathogens are disadvantaged. Now, the collectors tend to run really low salt. Then they tend to sell their fish to a wholesaler, which might run low salt but maybe slightly higher. Then they might sell it to either another wholesaler or a retailer, which will tend to run lower salt but probably a little bit higher. So basically, in between when the fish are collected out of high salt and dumped straight into low salt, then each stage of the transfer of the fish typically will slowly raise the salinity, because you want to get back to full salinity eventually. But what you don't want to do is be the one that bears the salt going up, because all the advantages that the collector has gained by lowering the salt, you just undid. So fish cannot handle going up salt quick. 1 degree a day, 2 at the most. And that's fully acclimatized. Down is fine, because that eases osmotic pressure. If it's going up, then suddenly your osmoregulation system has to work really, really hard. And if the osmoregulation system has to work hard to balance the salt in the body, then the thing that shuts off is the immune system. And the immune system will take several weeks to turn back on. So once there's a stressful situation for the fish, the immune system goes down. Then we need to wait for that immune system to go back up again once the stress is gone before we think about doing anything else to the fish. So we need to stabilize them for a month before we put new fish in, and we need to do everything nice and slowly and nice and gradually. So when you're adding new fish, I would recommend just dropping the salinity. In this tank, you could easily drop it down to 0.020, and then you can slowly creep it up at your leisure. As you get corals, you need to be a little bit more careful of not dropping it too much because the corals don't appreciate it. And then if you had a really big tank with lots of corals and fish, you really want to consider a quarantine tank. And that way you can put the fish into the quarantine tank. You can run them at a low salt. You can slowly raise it at your own leisure. You can put the fish in there for a month and make sure they're healthy and happy and settled in and used to you and feeding and all the rest of it. Make sure their immune system is returned before you then pop them into the main tank. To drop your salt level, it's really easy. We're just going to take some salt out of the water and salt water out and put some fresh RO water in. Then to raise the salt level, we can either take some water out and put some full salt water in, or we can dissolve a little bit of aquarium salt into some salt water just to raise the level up a little bit more and then tip it back in. Once again, you can go down fairly quickly, but you've got to go up very slowly. Now, testing your water is some of the real cheap hydrometers. They're not really very good. They're not very reliable. So whatever you get, make sure you test it against our more expensive, reliable salinity meters. When you bring a sample of water down to us, we'll obviously check it for you. And then when it comes to your own tests, you can either get a cheap hydrometer, but you want to cross-test it against ours every now and then so we can find out if it's actually giving you an accurate reading. Otherwise, you can go for a refractometer. They're more expensive and much better, and they can easily be calibrated, so therefore you'll get an accurate reading out of it.